Hello chess buddies, welcome to Amin Chess University. Indian Grandmaster Lalith Babu won the Vergani Cup title held in the Cattolica town of Italy. So huge congratulations to him. By securing 7 points in the 9 rounds, he was tied on the top spot with Mok Neyman of USA, Vitaly Bernatsky of Ukraine, and Nurgul Salimova of Bulgaria, but he edged them on the best tiebreak record, winning the tournament as well as the first prize of £2,500. Today we'll be looking at his round 8 game against Iranian Grandmaster Amin Tabatabaei, which was an interesting don't miss beauty. The time control for the game was 90 minutes for the first 40 moves, followed by 30 minutes for the rest of the game with a 30-second increment per move starting from move 1. So without further ado, let's get straight into the game. Lalith with the white pieces begins with d4 going for the queen's pawn opening, knight to f6 by Amin going for the Indian game, c4 by white and g6 by black going for the king's Indian defense, knight to c3 by white and bishop to g7 by black going for the normal variation of the king's Indian defense. Here white plays e4. Its further idea is to play c5 or e5 and black prevents this by playing d6. Here white plays knight to f3 and black castled, and white plays h3 blocking this g4 square and access of the knight as well as the bishop, and black plays e5 striking the center. White puts the d4 pawn to d5 creating a triangular pawn chain. Black played knight to h5 trying to bring the knight to this f4 square. This by playing pawn to g3. Black develops the other knight by playing knight to a6. And white plays bishop to e3. Pawn to f5 by black. Pawn captures on f5. Pawn captures on f5. And queen to d2 by white. And black plays knight to c5. And here white castles on the queen side. Now there are two games in the database with the same position where black played knight to f6 and both the games ended in a draw. However, here black puts the pawn to f4 and it is as of move 12 that we have a completely new game. The dark square bishop captures the knight on c5. Black didn't capture the bishop on c5. Instead, it captured the pawn on g3, enabling the rook at f8 to attack this knight at f3 with both the dark square bishop and the knight under the attack. White chose to save the dark square bishop and brought it back to e3 and the rook captured the knight on f3. However, this enabled the white to play a brilliant move. Here Lalith played bishop to e2, targeting the rook as well as the knight. Black was forced to move the rook back to f5. Lalith continued the attack. He played bishop to g4, forking the rook as well as the knight. Now black captured the pawn on f2. And here white played rook to f1, preventing the pawn from reaching f1. Here black has to choose between saving the rook or the knight. And Amin decided to sacrifice the rook in this position. He played knight to f4. Here bishop captured the rook on f5. Bishop captured the bishop on f5. Now Amin got both his bishops covering the diagonal of a1 and b1. And it was the position he was looking for. Here bishop captured the knight on f4. Pawn captured the bishop on f4. And rook captured the pawn on f2, targeting this f4 pawn twice. Here black would have gone for bishop to e5, however it played queen to f6. And white played rook to g1, targeting the g file and pinning this bishop. Black moved to the king to h8, a safety square. And here Lalith played knight to e2. His further idea is to capture this pawn at f4, but also simultaneously providing protection to this pawn at h3. Better idea for black in this position would have been to bring the non-activated rook to e8 and then targeting this knight. However, here black made a mistake. Pawn to f3. This was not the best idea. Now rook captured the pawn on f3 while also providing protection to this h3 pawn. And as long as the black queen is present on this f file, the bishop at f5 is also pinned and cannot move anywhere because rook is attacking this f file. So black had tried something different. It played bishop to h6, targeting the queen. And here white had to play knight to f4. Now black can move the light square bishop. It played bishop to e4, targeting the rook. The rook cannot move to e3 because then white will lose the knight. So here white played the rook back to d2 and now black activated his non-active rook and brought it to f8. Now the knight at f4 is under triple attack from the bishop, queen and the rook. So white here played rook to f1 and black had to be a little bit careful here because now the knight would be threatening to come to g6 in the future. So black played rook to g8, preventing any ideas like that. And here white played king to d1, unpinning itself from this diagonal so that the queen can move. And here black played queen to e5. White played queen to c3, forcing the queen exchange. Queen captures the queen on c3, pawn captures the queen on c3. And here black played c6, played rook to e1, attacking this bishop. And black played bishop to b1, targeting this pawn at a2. White plays rook to a6, attacking the d6 pawn as well as the bishop at h6. And bishop moves back to g7, targeting the c3 pawn. Rook captured the pawn on d6. Bishop captured the pawn on c3. White played knight to e6. And with this move, Lalith made sure that the black king doesn't come to g7. Now black has to be very careful and only the rook at g8 is preventing the back rank checkmate. Now Amin decided to move the rook and he played rook to g8, delivering a check. Now the king cannot move to the c2 or d2 square, so it moved to e2. Black played rook to e1, giving a check again, and here king moved to f3. Now black is facing a complicated situation. It's going to lose the game in the next move if white plays rook to d8. The king cannot move to g7, so black has to choose between sacrificing the rook, taking the knight at e6, or go for a much preferred option of bishop to f6. Black went for the latter. It played bishop to f6, protecting this d8 square and preventing the checkmate idea by the white. And here white played rook to d7, targeting the pawn at b7. Black captured the pawn on d5. White captured the pawn on d5. And black played bishop to e4, delivering a check. And white moved the king to g4. Black played rook to g1, giving a check. And white king moves to h5. Black cannot bring the rook to g5 because that is covered by the knight. Black played bishop to g6, giving a check. And the white king can move to only one position, that is h6. And here black committed a huge mistake. It played the light square bishop to e8, targeting this rook at d7. However, this one proved to be crucial. Now white is completely winning this game. So feel free to pause the video and find out the move white played next. If you are able to figure it out, well done. Here white played rook to h7, delivering a check. And it was in this position on move 41 that Amin resigned the game. Let's see why. The black king is left with only one square to move, that is g8. And here white will play rook captures the bishop at f6, threatening the checkmate the next move. And if black tries to play bishop to f7, then white rook will simply capture the bishop on f7 and winning the game in the next move by playing rook to f8. And in this position, if black plays rook to g6, forcing the rook at f6 to capture it, and the light square bishop captures the rook at g6, then white will play rook to g7, delivering the check. Here king cannot move to f8, so the only position it can move to is h8. And in the next move, rook will capture the bishop. Again, the black king is left with no moves. If it plays b5, white will play knight to g5. But if it pushes a pawn to b4, then white will deliver the checkmate by playing knight to f7. So after rook to h7 check, black resigned the game. Here, Amin thought he had the game won because the white king was left with no more square to move. However, what happened here was opposite. Lalith moved his king masterfully into the black king's territory. Navigating through the board and evading the checks, Lalith secured a great win. So that's the game. This was the second back-to-back title for Lalith after winning the Thailand Chess Festival towards the end of December last year. So he's enjoying a purple patch, and it only bodes well for India. If you have any thoughts or comments regarding this game, please share below. If you have a suggestion for a game you want me to cover, do share it. Thank you for watching. Take care.